Hello, welcome to this video on RPA by Workato, and today's topic is global variables, which can help us parameterize configuration data such as web app URLs, file locations, access credential, business rules, email lists, and so forth. So if we go to our process that we've automated in the first video, the web automation, we can improve this process by parameterizing this configuration data. For example, in this Open Web Browser step, we have the URL of the application, which is hard-coded here in the process. And the thing here, if the URL changes, we will need to update our process and then publish it again. And then the second thing is that this URL might be different for different environments. So we'll maybe have one URL for the dev environment, one for the test URL, and one for the production. And we cannot have multiple values here, so it's only one. So if we want to switch from test to production, we would need to again change the URL. So that's not the best thing to do. Same applies is, for example, for the login, where we had hard-coded values for the username and for the password, which is obviously not a good thing because it can change, and then we also don't want it in plain sight here. The way we can parameterize this is using the global variables functionality. So if I click on the global variables, I can create a new variable that will hold the order app URL. And we need to define on which scope this global variable applies to. So it can be on the organizational level, it can be for a specific department or a specific process. In my case, I will choose the process that I've created, and then I will put in the URL of the app. Okay, and I will put the same values for development, test, and production, but in real life, it might be different URLs. Okay, let's go ahead and create this global variable, and then also let's create order app username. Again, on the process level, I'm going to select the create order process, and then I'm going to put the username, which in my case is the same for all different stages, but it might be different in real life. Okay, and then lastly, let's create order app password, and again assign it to our process, and the password is the same as the username. But what I want to highlight here is that we can mark this data as confidential or secret. So once we create this global variable, and if I go ahead and edit this variable, you can see that it's obfuscated and the value is not visible in plain sight, and we can just edit the value. So now that we've created the global variables, we can go back to our process and make the necessary changes. So instead of having a hard-coded value here, we're going to switch to variable reference. And then you can see that we have some new variables that are denoted by this blue dot, which means that they are a global variable and they are managed outside of the process. So here we are going to use the app URL, and then let's remove the username, hard-coded value, and reference it to a global variable. So with this functionality, you can parameterize all these different pieces of data, things like where you store files, file paths, folders, the email list that contains the list of people that you want to send emails to, access credentials, business rules, like for example, some threshold for the invoice or something like that. So these are all useful variables that can be extracted outside of the process. So Now we've actually parameterized our process. So with global variables, you can make your processes much more manageable. Thank you for watching.